In this video, we will show you how to replace your power steering rack bellow boot on this Honda Civic. This will be located attached to the power steering rack behind your front wheel. Let's get into it. Okay friends, let's get started on our job. The first thing you are going to want to do is safely raise and support the front of your vehicle so the wheel is off the ground. I like to have the suspension hanging. Once you've done that, continue on to removing all 5 of your 19mm lug nuts, the hubcap assuming you have one, and then the wheel. Now that we have the wheel out of the way, we have a close look at where the bellows boot is located. To remove this, we're going to have to disassemble some of the steering. Let's start with this 24mm jam nut in between the inner tie rod end and the outer tie rod end. Just get my wrench on here, break it free with a rubber mallet. Now once you have this broken free, move along to the outer tie rod end. To start removing the outer tie rod end from the knuckle, you're going to find that you have a cotter pin. Go ahead and get this out of here, and then we'll remove the mounting nut. I'll just use some cutters, grab onto it, and pull it out of place. It's common to have to replace these because typically they are rusted. Once you have the cotter pin out of the way, use a 19mm to remove the mounting nut. Now that we have the nut off of there, a quick inspection, and we'll start it on just a couple threads. The next thing you'll want to do is come right along this area of the knuckle. We're going to give this a little bonk with a hammer and try to separate the tie rod end from the knuckle. The nut is there to hold this in place so it doesn't fall down and potentially hurt you in any way. Remove the tie rod end from the knuckle. Now let's continue on by unscrewing the outer tie rod end from the inner tie rod end. While we're turning this, you want to make sure that you count the amount of turns that it takes to remove it. So during the installation, we'll turn it back in the exact same amount of turns. 1, 2, and so on. Write down that number and set this aside. Now we can start removing this jam nut. What you might find is as you're trying to turn it, the entire inner tie rod end will turn as well. If that's the case, make your way right up along here. You can hold it with some locking pliers. Use your 24mm to remove that nut. With that nut out of the way, follow the inner tie rod end up to where the clamp is that holds the bellow boot to the inner tie rod end. We'll use some long nose pliers. Squeeze on the clamp and remove it. Give it a quick inspection, make sure it is still reusable. Now we'll follow the bellow boot to where it connects onto the power steering rack. You're going to find that you have another clamp, but this clamp is a single time use. So we'll be using a long pry bar and a hammer and breaking this free. I'll show you what it looks like in 1 second. So there it is. I rested the bar directly against this area, gave it a quick bonk, and it broke it free. This is not reusable, so we'll set it aside for recycling. Now that we have all the clamps off of here, we'll continue on by breaking the boot free from the inner tie rod end. You can use a small pocket screwdriver or a pick. Just want to make my way around this real quick. Once it's broken free, we'll remove it. Take hold of that boot, give it a little twist, and slide it out of position. There it is, friends. All right, let's get ready for the installation of our brand new Bellow boot. You'll find that it came with a wire tie for the inner area here. Let's start this in position, but leave it nice and loose. There we are. It's putting no pressure on that boot. Now we'll slide it over the inner tie rod end and onto the power steering rack. Double check to make sure it's pressed all the way onto the power steering rack as far as possible. Use some long nose pliers to tighten that wire tie. Trim off the excess. Slide the Bellow boot into the proper position, into that groove. Assuming your original clamp was still in good condition, you can reuse it. Otherwise, use a wire tie. Ours is reusable, so I'll be sliding this into the proper position on the boot, holding it to the inner tie rod end. Double check to make sure it's secure all the way around. Continue on to your jam nut. We'll put this approximately 3/4 of the way down the threading. Now it's time for the inner tie rod end. Make sure that you put this on the same amount of threads as it took to remove it. 1, 2, and so on. Make sure you end with it facing straight up. Go ahead and slide this into your knuckle. Now we can continue on with our 19mm mounting nut. We will bottom this out and then torque it to 40 foot-pounds. If you find that the stud wants to spin on you, carefully use a pry bar. Go underneath that tie rod end, press it up into the knuckle. Torque that nut to 40 foot-pounds. We'll use a brand new locking cotter pin. Slide it through the hole and pin it over so there's no way this nut can loosen up on its own. The next thing you'll want to do is move back to that jam nut. We're going to turn this counterclockwise to make sure it's pressed all the way against the outer tie rod end. Make sure it's nice and snug. Now we can install our wheel. Install your hubcap, making sure that you align your valve stem hole. Start on all 5 of your 19mm lug nuts, bottom them out. We'll get the wheel back on the ground and torque each of the lug nuts to 80 foot-pounds. Now with the wheel safely on the ground, we'll torque these in a crisscross manner. Torqued. Okay friends, we installed our front Bellow boot. At this point, you can go ahead and take your vehicle for a road test down to your local alignment shop. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.